Hello, everyone, and welcome to the part 4 of this MCP series. In our session today, we will learn how to build an MCP server from scratch. Prerequisite for today's session is knowledge of MCP and MCP servers. Hence, if you do not know how MCP servers work, what are the various server primitives, please refer to this part 3 that I had created some time back. The URL is mentioned right here at the bottom. It will also be mentioned in the description of this video. Scenario for a lab today. So a lot of LLMs currently do not have the ability to fetch the forecast and the severe weather alerts information directly. So what we are going to do is we are going to build a server that exposes these two server tools. So server tools are nothing else but server primitives, and they are the essential building blocks of an MCP server. So we are going to build two server tools today, get alerts and get forecast. We will connect this MCP server using standard IO or STD-IO transport protocol to an MCP host. And since we don't have an MCP client, we are going to use this MCP host, which is Claude for desktop, to basically connect and work with our MCP server. So this is going to act as a host as well as our client. When we create the client, of course, you will try to connect our server and the client, but for the time being, to test our server and to have something like a test harness that works with our server and enables us to test it, we are going to use Cloud for Desktop. These are some reference URLs. The first three URLs are basically for software that you might need to download depending upon how your setup is. So you will need .NET SDK 8 or above. You will need VS Code, and of course you will need Cloud Desktop that you should download from Cloud AI. The last URL is absolutely critical because you will be copying most of the code from this particular URL. This is the official documentation of Model Context Protocol, and we will be using this particular URL to copy some of the code for our MCP server. These reference URLs will also be mentioned in the description of this video, so please keep them handy, especially the last one. Environment setup. So there are two options that you can use here. You can either provision a single Windows Server 2025 base C5 extra large instance. This is an EC2 instance on AWS, or you can use your laptop or your desktop. My recommendation to you would be to provision an EC2 instance so that basically you work on creating this MCP server, you finish this lab end to end, and simply just terminate the instance. I personally don't like to install, download anything on my laptop a lot. So that's my preferred way. But hey, if you already have a good setup on your laptop or your desktop and you want to use the same, feel free to do that. I am personally a .NET developer, hence I'm doing this lab in .NET. But the official URL, which I shared some time back, that is this one right here for MCP. This has code for MCP server in Python, Java, C#, I think Node.js is also there, Kotlin is also there. So if you don't prefer .NET and you want to use some other language, feel free to do that. Remember, this is not about coding. This is about understanding how to create an MCP server. The code is already there. You don't have to write any code. Even if you're a Java developer, I'm sure that you can always copy paste some code, even if it's a .NET code in VS Code, right? So let's not focus on what goes inside the code. You can have any logic that you want for all you want. You can even hard code the response. This is to understand how you go about creating an MCP server. So because I am a .NET developer personally myself, I will be using .NET, C#.NET. And for this environment setup, we will need .NET 8 SDK or higher. We will need VS Code and Cloud for Desktop. So go ahead and install this if you have it. So install your SDK, your VS Code, and with your VS Code, install C# dev extension. And finally, Cloud for Desktop. So let me quickly shift gears over here. Okay, so I am going to basically copy this particular URL real quick. And what I have done is I have actually provisioned my environment. So I've completed all of those steps. If, as you can see, I have the .NET SDK downloaded. I have the VS Code along with Cloud Desktop. So I have downloaded all of these installables. I've also installed them on this particular VM. As you can see, you have Cloud, I have VS Code, and I have also uh, uh, installed the SDK. What I want to show you today, let's go ahead and take a look at that first. So let me quickly copy this URL. So this is the formal documentation. So if you scroll down, this is where you will see the different languages. So as I said, Python, Node, Java, Kotlin, and C#. I will be following steps for C#, but hey, the steps are the same, the language differs, right? Of course, the setup, the environment setup will differ from one language to the other, but the basic steps and the essential logic of creating an MCP server remains the same. So please visit this particular URL. This is very handy and just follow the steps along. Okay, so now let me go back to okay, I need to bring the share thing down. Okay, and now let me go back over here. So I have completed these steps. I have provisioned my EC2 instance and I am good to go. So let's go to step 2. In our step 2, we will create and set up our project. So basically we will create the weather directory. We will create and initialize a new C# project. We will install a couple of NuGet packages. This is for MCP and this is for Microsoft extensions hosting. So let's install these packages. But before we do that, since I had installed my SDK, what I'm going to do is I am going to check my .NET version. So this is essentially the command to check your .NET version. Remember, we need the .NET SDK to be 8 or above. So let's see. So there it is. This is my .NET SDK version, which is about 8. So I'm good to go. Okay, so now let us go back over here and execute these commands. So these are simple commands like, make directory, then switch to that particular directory. So nothing crazy. So make directory, paste any which ways. So we've made a directory called as weather, and now we have changed a directory and we are in the weather directory. Simple, straightforward commands. Now let us create a simple console project. It's a C# project. Let's enter and it will do its magic. Correct. Now, if you go to the documentation right here under C#, you will see that these commands are here. So if you don't want to type and you want to simply copy from here, feel free to do that. So this is the weather directory command, and this is the .NET console project creation of .NET console project command right there. And these are the commands for the NuGet packages. So if you want, you can actually copy this from right here. And also, let me clear the screen and paste it right there. Hit enter and it will start installing. Let me copy the other one. So this is right there. So this is one of my first labs of creating an MCP server. So I'm keeping it simple. We are following the documentation, so it becomes very simple for anyone who wants to create the MCP server. All the code that is required to create the MCP server, including the environment setup, is mentioned right here in the documentation. So there should not be any problem for anybody to follow this to the T. Okay. So we basically completed some of these steps. So we completed step 2. So we've completed all of these steps, all of these. Let's go to the next step. So now we will start building our server. So we are going to open up program.cs, which is part of our console.NET project. We will copy the code from our reference URL. That is our formal documentation for MCP. We will copy a couple of other classes for managing JSON requests to program CS. And then finally, we will copy the code for creation of the weather tools. And we will basically try and run our server with .NET Run. Now, remember, copy the code from the reference URL. Okay, so let me switch back over here. So this is your reference URL. This is the formal documentation. So copy the code from here. Remember, our intention is not to debug the code or to debug the logic. The logic is pretty straightforward. So copy the code from here, but you need to basically understand what we are trying to do over here, right? So if you see, you're using the model context protocol over here. This is one of the reference libraries. You're trying to create a server with stdio server transport. What you are doing over here is we are creating an HTTP client. Okay, so we are creating an HTTP client. Essentially, what this client is doing is it is connecting to this particular URL, which is api.weather.gov, and basically it's going to connect to this particular URL and get the required weather information for us. Remember that we are going to implement two tools, get alerts and get forecasts. So by connecting to this particular URL, it is going to get us the weather information, the forecast, whatever that is forecasted going forward. And if at all there are any alerts, weather alerts, then it should also get that information for us. So that is essentially what we are doing over here. So let us go ahead and copy this piece of code. And I will have to open my VS Code. So let's go there first. Now remember that we had created our .NET project. So let's see where a project got created. So this PC, C Sharp, and is it under administrator? Yeah, there it is. So weather, and this is my weather project. This is a C Sharp project source file, and this is our program CS. So what we are going to do is we are going to open our folder. We are going to go to that particular folder, users, administrator, weather. Let's open weather. And hopefully it opens up our solution explorer. Yes. So this is our weather. This is a CS project file. Where's my solution explorer? This is my solution explorer. And over here, it should be able to show me my program.cs. And this is basically just a regular template. Remember, we just created a simple project using the console. So what we are going to do is we are going to copy this particular piece of code from here and paste it right there. Right? And we are going to save this. So save this. Okay. Now there is another piece of code. There's another class over here, which is HTTP client extension. We should also copy this particular class and basically paste it in program.cs. So let me go back over here and I'm going to paste this class. Going to move this using right up on the top. Okay, and we should be good to go. So we have some of our basic class information over here. That is creating an HTTP client, connecting to our URL, and eventually is going to get our weather information from there. So this is our weather tool version 1.0. Perfect. So now let us go ahead and first save this. So I've saved this. Now this is a basic construct of an MCP server. Remember, the important part is to expose our tools. So we have to create two weather tools today, get alerts and get forecast. So let's go back to our documentation. And this is our documentation. Now what we need to do is we need to create another class, basically, which with tool execution handlers for querying and converting responses from National Weather Service API and sending it back. So we have get alerts. This basically, as you see, gets you alerts for a specific US state that you are asking for, and it gets that information. If you see it, it formats that entire information and sends it back as this nice JSON document, right? So you can basically look at this in detail. Sorry, I think I moved on the other side. So this is that particular JSON response right here. And the next one that we have is get forecast. Now this particular function gets the forecast using the latitude of the location and the longitude of the location. So if you provide a specific location, it'll get its latitude and longitude, and then further along get us the weather information. For example, the temperature, the wind, and the forecast. Now, you don't need to go crazy with what is mentioned as part of this logic. For all you know, if you want, you can simply even hard code the response because the logic depends upon what you are trying to achieve. So let's say if you are trying to build this in your own application, in your own project, you will have your business logic over here as to what you want to kind of return back as part of the response to the client, whoever calls this particular tool. So let's say the tool is basically a calculator that's going back to the API, to the AI application, or it is providing some simple information, then that's totally up to you. Okay, so what information you want to return back, that's up to you. Right now, we are using these two tools, get alerts and get forecast, basically, to kind of simulate the whole MCP tool exercise. So these two are going to be our two tools, which are the core server primitives. So let us go ahead and basically copy this. Now let's go back to our VS Code, go to weather, create a new class. I'm going to say weather.cs. You can give any name that you like and copy this piece of code right here. Simply just copy the code. Don't go crazy with the logic, etc. As I said, if you want, you can even hard code the response. That's totally up to you. And of course, we need to save this. So save this. So these are our two tools, get alerts and get forecast. Okay. So what we have done is we have successfully copied this to our VS Code. And finally, what we need to do is run this particular server. So let's go here in VS Code, terminal, new terminal. Okay, hopefully the terminal is coming up. There it is. So what we are going to do over here is we are going to try and run our server. So hit enter and just copy the code to the T so there are no debugging issues or errors. The server will run and you should be good to go. Now, if you want to stop the server, hit Control C and the server will stop. Okay, so we basically finished all of these steps. Now, what we want to do is connect and test our server using Cloud for Desktop. Now remember, we don't have an MCP client. Hence, we are using this particular utility to connect and test our server. So you should have this downloaded. And what you need to do is you need to go to this particular config file. Now, this is the typical URL for that, but there's an easy way to get to it. So let me go back and let's bring this down. Let's bring this down as well. Close this, close this, close this. Okay. So over here, click on your Cloud for Desktop installation. Now what you want to do over here is go to this hamburger icon right up over here in your top left hand corner. This is where it is, right here, where my mouse is. Go to this hamburger icon, go to File, and go to Settings. And then go to Developer. Now over here, you will see Local MCP Server. You see that? So basically add and manage your MCP servers that you're working on. So this is a nice little harness or a utility to basically test your MCP servers. And what you want to do is click on Edit Config. And this hopefully will take you to this particular path that I had mentioned in my PowerPoint right here. So this is the same path. Right? So this is the same path. So let's go here and you have this config file right there. So what you want to do is open this config file. Now you can open it in VS Code or you can open it in Notepad. That's totally up to you. Now what you want to do is that you want to copy the MCP server configuration to this particular config file. So, and after you do that, just ensure that you exit Cloud for Desktop completely and restart it. I will show that to you. If you do not do that, your MCP server will not get registered. Okay, so let's first go and get a config course. If you scroll down, this is that same, Cloud for Desktop config JSON. If you scroll down, you copy this particular configuration from here. And now we go to our VS Code where we had opened that particular config file, Control A, Control V. So this is our configuration. What it is asking over here is the absolute path to your project. So the absolute path to my project where my server is administrator weather. So this is my absolute path. So I'm going to copy this and paste it right there. Now, since it's a string, please ensure that you escape it right there and save this. Okay, so you've saved this and then finally we close this particular file. So we have basically copied our code from here. Okay, so we have copied this configuration. Now this is the most important step. Exit and restart. So if I go back over here, now let's bring this down, close this. Now this is our Cloud for Desktop. If I simply just go over here and close this, and then again reopen it, you will see that my MCP server has not been registered. So if your MCP server is not registering, this is the mistake that you are making. What you need to do is you need to go to File and you need to exit out of this completely. When you exit out of this will completely shut down. And when you go back in, it will be restarted. When it is going to be restarted, that's when it's going to go and read your config file and basically connect to your MCP server. So let me exit. Now again, restart this. Now let us go ahead and check how is our MCP server doing. So developer, and you can see that our MCP server is running. Now, since this is a test harness, what it does behind the scene is that it actually runs the server. So if you see that the command .NET run and then from this particular location. Now it is doing this because it's a test harness, it's a host. Okay, it can do this. In real life, your MCP server may not be running on the same machine. It can again do this because it is running on the same machine. We are using STDIO to communicate. But hey, if your server is running elsewhere, then this is not possible. This is purely for just testing this MCP server. So the command that it has is basically .NET run and this particular project. This is where my MCP server is. There's no need to build it. It will basically just run this. Okay, so now let us go ahead and create a new chat. Now, if you have gone through the previous parts, I had clearly mentioned that as part of the MCP protocol, it's a requirement that all server tools are visible on the UI. This is the requirement of MCP protocol. So if there's a tool usage, right, it has to be visible on the UI. And not only it should be visible, remember that whenever you call the tool, the user should have the ability to approve or deny tool usage. So the user has to be informed that the tool has been called, and the user should also have the ability to basically decide whether I want to use this tool or not. So essentially, human intervention or human in the loop is an absolute must. So now let's see whether that is happening. So first, our tools should be visible on the UI. So let's see if they are visible. So if you go here and you click on the slider bar, and you will see that our weather MCP server is right there, and we have get forecast and get alerts. So these are the two tools that are available to us. So our tools are visible on the UI if you go there. Okay. Now remember that if I execute this tool, then as a user, I should get a pop-up or some form of a confirmation, basically asking whether I want to use this tool or not. So let's try that. What is the weather in NYC? So it's trying to call our weather server. It's calling a get forecast. And now it is asking me whether should I call this tool yes or no. So I can do allow once, allow always, or simply just decline this. So right now, since we are testing this for the first time, I'm going to do allow once. Okay, and now let's see whether it has got our weather forecast. It's pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's mid-August, it's humid. It's nice, and it'll be mostly sunny tomorrow. There's a 50% chance of afternoon showers and thunderstorms after 2 p.m. Okay, that's fine. And now what I'm going to do is let's ask another one. Are there any weather alerts for NYC? Let me just say alerts for NYC. I don't want to spoon feed it. Let's see if it understands. So now it is calling our MCP server, is calling our get alerts tool. And we are going to do again allow once. And let's see what it says. So it is having trouble. So probably it has not been able to retrieve that information from weather.gov for whatsoever reason, which is fine. I mean, maybe the service is down. Okay. Now let us say, how is the weather in Paris. Okay. And now let us see what it does. Paris, France. Now, again, it is calling get forecast, but this time I'm going to decline it. Now, remember, as per the MCP protocol, it should not continue further ahead. And basically, it is unable to retrieve the current weather forecast for Paris. And it is just giving me certain alternatives. Okay. Are there any weather alerts for Miami? Let's see. Now, again, this time around, I'm going to decline this service and let's see what it does. Again, see, it didn't continue further ahead. So it is actually working as expected. Basically, it is going by what I'm telling. If I'm approving the request, then it is going further ahead. If I'm declining the requests, basically, I don't want to use this particular tool, then it will not call that tool. And most importantly, before calling the tool, before executing the tool, before calling the server and executing the tool, it is asking me whether I want to use this tool or not. And yes, there is a visual indication over here that there we have an MCP server and we have two tools. Now, if you want, you can disable all tools. That's a different question. Now let us try what is the, oh no, no, okay, let's say, how is the weather in Mumbai? Now let's see what it does. Now this is a test harness, so oh, see, oh my God, this is still calling it. Okay, that is funny because we said disable all tools. So there's a bug over here. Okay, allow once. Okay, now it is saying I'm unable to receive due to your technical issue. I recommend doing this. Ideally, it shouldn't have asked us because, hey, we said disable all tools. Okay, the tools are there, but they are disabled. So that's why it didn't call it. Maybe that's the default way it works with. Okay, so uh, let me now enable them. It's kind of funny if the tools are disabled, why is it still asking or showing the tools? But anyways, the good part is that it still didn't call the tool. Now let's enable all the tools and ask the same question. Now let us see if it can call the tool and get us the information. Allow once. Okay, so it seems to still call the tool. So this is probably a bug over here. So the response that we get, okay, for when the tools were disabled and when the tool was enabled is the same. Okay, so now let's say, how is the weather in, I don't know, I'm looking for a, in Dubai. Let's say Dubai. Allow once. Okay, so again, it is not able to do that for whatsoever reason. So I think it has San Francisco. I'm going to use a US city to see if it works better with US cities. Okay, so it works pretty good with US cities. Okay. Maybe outside of US, not so much, but I think it probably should have given me, weather for Paris. Okay, so outside of US, it's not doing that very well. So with US cities, it's pretty decent. So yeah, this is how you basically go about creating an MCP server and then connecting to the MCP server and testing it. So do play around with this. This is really fun. It's it's amazing that you know how you can create a server connected to a test harness, call your server tools, and simply use that information. And Cloud for Desktop is amazing behind the scenes. It's a great host, and you saw that how the integration of an MCP server is so easy. You can simply go to its dev tools and use and call the particular server and test it very easily. Now, this is a local server running on my machine and it is using the STD IO transport. So hence it is so easy. So do test it out and let me know what your experience is. I hope that this lab was helpful. Do post your comments. And this is it from me today. I will see you shortly in some other video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.